So I've got a special weekend for you in that we've got 2 ranking videos, not just 1 ranking video. So yesterday I put out my ranking of all 6 Transformers movies. You can look at the card, check that out. Once you finish this video, watch this one first, then go check that out. Today we are talking about all 13 Michael Bay films. Now Michael Bay's kind of an interesting person when it comes to cinema history because he's got 2 or 3 films that, generally speaking, people really love, at least the movie-going audience. They weren't loved by critics, but the movie-going audience really enjoyed a few of his big blockbuster action films. And then he's got a couple of movies that generally are respected by a group of people. They're more a niche audience, but people tend to like them if that's their thing. And then he's got these wildly successful Transformers movies that are hated by movie fans and movie critics, but someone out there absolutely loves them and keeps buying tons and tons of movie tickets for them, so they keep making tons of money, so he keeps coming back to make more of them. So he's in this really weird place in movie history, and that most people love a couple things, and then they hate other things, but someone out there's watching his stuff. So with all that said, let's just go through and talk about all his movies. Before we do that, go ahead and throw your ranking down in the comment section down below while you're watching the movie. Kind of think through it, rewrite it, give me your thoughts on it, your little comments, whatever you want to say about it. Spark some great discussion down in there. I do read all of those, and the more kind of questions or comments you make, the more there is for me to respond to. I'd love to talk about his movies with you. With that said, let's look at the Rotten Tomatoes score and how these did with the critics when they first came out. So going from worst to the best, at the bottom, the one that just came out, Transformers The Last Night with 15%. Hopping up from there, Transformers Age of Extinction with 18%. Hopping up from there at number 11, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen with 19%. Coming in at number 10 is Bad Boys 2 with 23%. That one's kind of interesting to me. Coming in at number 9 is Pearl Harbor with 25%. Coming in at number 8 is Transformers Dark of the Moon with 35%. At number 7 is Armageddon with 39%. At number 6 is The Island, the forgotten Michael Bay film, with 40%. At number 5 is Bad Boys with 43%. Coming in at number 4 is Pain and Gain with 49%. At number 3 is 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi with 50%. Coming in at number 2, Transformers with 57%. And at number 1 is The Rock with 66%. Now just stop and think about that. His highest scored film on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics is at 66%. And it's his only one that's fresh from the critics. Stop and think about that. One of the most successful and consistent hit producers of the last 20 years only has one movie that's rated fresh from Rotten Tomatoes. And that's, you just kind of see the difference between what people buy tickets for and what the critics like. And then there's also what movie fans, that not just movie goers, but movie fans themselves, what they think about it. That's where he's in such an interesting place when it comes to movies. So if you checked out my video yesterday where I ranked the Transformers movies, the way I ranked those was based entirely on watchability and rewatchability. That was kind of my only standard. And so some of them were so bad, I kind of moved them up the list because they were interesting to rewatch me. As I'm doing this list right here, this is my attempt at making a list that's based purely on what I think the quality of it, factoring in the storytelling, the elements, the special effects, all the stuff together, as well as watchability, all mixed in together. That's the way this list in particular is done. And so with these movies, kind of the bottom 4 or 5, I really don't care for them. They're not movies that I would choose to just rewatch for the fun of it. The middle ones kind of in there are like, these are good movies I like to watch from time to time, but not all that often. And the top few on here are movies I actually enjoy quite a bit and probably rewatch every year. It's kind of the way it works, at least. One of them's new to that top spot, so that's not quite true. But we'll get to that in just a minute. With all that said, put your comments and your ranking down in the comment section down below. And here is mine. Starting at number 13, Transformers The Last Night. So this is the one that I just saw yesterday. And it is a bad movie. And as I've talked about it in my review and my ranking video from yesterday, it's a movie that it's so obvious of what it was, which was they did a writer's room where they got a whole bunch of guys that put a bunch of ideas out there and they wrote their ideas down and put them up on a board. And then it just seems like they did all of them. And they didn't make sense. They didn't fit together. It didn't fit with the past continuity. It didn't make for a coherent story. And they put this all together, trying to just kind of like, let's make it epic and let's still have the stupid Michael Bay jokes and we'll still have the spectacle. And we still got Marky Mark, but we won't have this and we'll have this and we'll that. and it's just a big jumbled mess. So for that reason, on my Transformers list, it was higher up because it's so bad. It kind of loops back around a little bit to me and became a little bit interesting. But it really is a movie that it's not well made. It is very poorly written. It's very poorly executed. I was talking in the comment section. Someone said that they heard a rumor that perhaps they cut out some plot lines about Optimus and Megatron that would explain a few things. That would make some sense, but it's almost to say like a movie that already has too many complex storylines, too many things going on, that the problem with it is that they cut one out. No, this is a movie that needed to cut 15 plot lines out of it so that we only had like 15 left in the movie. But it is a jumbled mess that is poorly executed, that does not make any sense, that doesn't have basic level structure and how it's put together. And even the aspect ratios in scenes themselves of similar things keeps jumping around. That is how poorly made this movie is. Coming in at number 12 is Transformers Age of Extinction. Very similar to the one below it. It's not quite as bonkers crazy as The Last Night, but it's also like 30 minutes longer, 20, 25 minutes longer than it. And it's just homework to get through it. It is so long and so bloated because it's not like the plot, it's not like The Last Night where there was just an insane number of plot lines going on. There were a lot of plot lines, but generally speaking, it was a fairly straightforward story that was just stretched out, and everything just kept going on and on and on for so long. It was just draining and tiring. And as I mentioned in my video yesterday, I was taking notes while I was watching it in case I did a review for it, which I didn't end up doing. But I was putting time codes down and how long we were staying in places. And I got to about 90 minutes into it. I was like, we're only 90 minutes into this and there's an hour and 15 minutes left. I am so exhausted from this movie and I have over an hour left. I can't believe this. And so it's a movie that's way too long with way too much. Everything is just kind of crammed in there in a way that doesn't work. It's got all the bad Michael Bay humor, all the objectifying of women, and it's even creepier because she's underage and they try and justify things. It is a mess of a film. Sorry for the interruption. I wanted to talk about the single biggest thing you can do to support my channel, and that's to become one of my official patrons by supporting me financially directly on my Patreon page. If you do that, you get kind of special influence into my page in that I ask my patrons every month, what movie would they like me to review? What subject do they want me to address in a video? And essentially they get a personalized video made directly for them each month. I also give them special influence into my future projects I'm working on, give them shout outs, and like in this video right here, I put a list of their names up on the screen because I want to support their channels as well. So if you'd be willing to support my channel because you're a big fan of what we're doing and you want me to continue doing this, please consider supporting me on Patreon. With all that said, let's continue. Coming in number 11 is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Now these bottom three Transformers movies, they're kind of interchangeable as to which one's at the bottom, which one's in the middle, and which are the top of the bottom three. They're all pretty bad to me. They're all pretty difficult to get through, and there's just little things that are a little bit more enjoyable about each. I like Shia LaBeouf in these movies. He has a certain natural quality to him that makes him a little bit more likable and enjoyable. So just for that reason, maybe it's on top. The plot is still incoherent. The movie's still overlong. It's still overly complex. There's just this stretched out plot line about him going to college and having a roommate and his parents showing up and all sorts of just stuff that doesn't need to be there. But there's just something about it, just a little bit more of a charm to it that puts me above the other two, but that's not saying much. On a different mood, based off what I had for dinner the night before, this one could be at the bottom. All three of these are they're difficult for me to watch because they're just so blah. Coming in number 10 is Pearl Harbor. Now, this is a movie that really ill-conceived. And so you've probably, if you heard any reviews of it compared to Titanic, it's like the movies, if you take Pearl Harbor and you mix it with Titanic, and then you mix it with Michael Bay's stupid jokes, and then you mix it with a little bit of Michael Bay incredible spectacle, what do you get? A very disrespectful film about a real-life important event in our nation's history, or at least my nation's history, that just kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. And the thing that makes it so weird and confusing, it's written by Randall Wallace, the guy that wrote Braveheart. And that should probably give you a good idea of how much of what happens in these movies, from the script to what's on the screen, is filtered through Michael Bay. The amount of cheesy humor, the amount of slapsticky just stuff that's so Michael Bay and really not Randall Wallace. So Randall Wallace also went on, he did Man in the Iron Mask, he did He did We Are Soldiers. That's the stuff that he does. He doesn't do this Michael Bay jokey crap, which you see in Pearl Harbor. And so it's a movie that's so ill-conceived, credible spectacle at the end, some really cool stuff that I don't know that quite meshes. And this will be kind of a recurring theme in a few of the different ones here of his style not matching the movie that he's doing, specifically when it relates to real life events. Coming in number 9 is The Island. Now, this one for me is just kind of the most forgettable. I don't have any big criticisms of it. It's just kind of a movie that was like, okay, that happened. I saw that, and I remember the cast. I remember Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson did a movie together, and oh yeah, it was a sci-fi movie. Oh, Michael Bay directed that. Oh yeah, it was like kind of like TH1138, and kind of like Logan's Run. Those sorts of stories, except Michael Bayified. But I only remember it in concept. It's not a movie that sticks with you. It's not memorable. It's definitely his most forgettable film. You don't love it, you don't hate it, you just barely remember it exists. Coming in at number 8 is Transformers Dark of the Moon. Now, this is a movie that's significantly better than the 3 Transformers lower on this list, but it's not good. It just kind of delivers a little bit more of what I needed this movie to deliver. It's got a great third act with some cool shots. And if you want to see robot on robot action while a gigantic downtown area is falling apart, you get it in this movie. The destruction, mayhem spectacle that you want from your Michael Bay movies with the explosions, with the fireworks, you get it in this movie. You also get the stupid Michael Bay jokes. You also get an overly long story about Sam getting a new job and breakup and his love life and the people he's jealous of, stretched out much longer than it needs to be. But it does deliver a little bit more on what you want. Has a little bit easier to follow a story. Still complex, convoluted, a little bit easier to follow. And a couple nuggets in there that are a little bit more interesting than the 3 below. Still not a great movie. Still all the flaws that these movies have, but a little bit more that you will enjoy. Now, for me, there's a big gap between Transformers Dark of the Moon and the next movie on this list. That's kind of the gap between where I go from, these movies are kind of hard to watch, and the ones on the bottom are, these are bad movies, to above this, I would say, yeah, these are good movies. Maybe for a niche audience, maybe not necessarily for you, all of them, but these are good movies that I would actually recommend. So coming in at number 7 is Pain and Gain. Now, this is a tough movie to watch because it's based off real events. And while you're watching this movie, it's hard to not think, I just don't know if I'm comfortable with the way this movie is made, the way it's directed, the way it treats this material as a dark comedy when people actually died, when people were actually wronged, hurt by what happened. If the events shown in this movie, I don't know that I want to get the enjoyment out of this movie that I'm getting out of it. With that said, if this movie was just dark comedy movie based off something Michael Bay made up, it would be a dark comedy that I would get a good amount of enjoyment out of. That it made me laugh. I enjoyed the cast and some interesting twists and this weird faith journey type thing, or whatever you would call what the Rock's character is going on in it. There's a lot of things that were actually interesting, fascinating about it. Not necessarily a movie that I want to rewatch a lot, but it would be a movie that the one time I did watch or have watched it, I enjoyed it a good bit. And then I thought, oh, do I like myself for enjoying this? Do I hate myself? I'm not fully comfortable with the fact that I enjoyed this movie and what that kind of means. And so his style of directing and stylizing events where people really died it's a weird one. Like I said, I recommend it. I did enjoy it a good bit. The fact that it's based off of real events makes me pretty uncomfortable. Coming in number 6 is Bad Boys 2. Now, this is a movie that, with better editing, with just trimming it down, once a common theme in Michael Bay movies, too long, too bloated, too much. You trim this one down and it shoots up a couple spots on the list. And I would think it's a much better movie. I would probably watch this one a lot more, or talk more positively about it if it was just shrunk down by 30 minutes. Because Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, some great fun rapport there. I love seeing Henry Rollins in a movie. And it's just Michael Bay doing an action movie where his stupid jokes fit in the context. And you got someone like a Will Smith that can pull it off. You got Martin Lawrence who can pull it off. And so there's a lot of fun to be had here. the movie just does not know when to end. It does not know when to quit. It just keeps on going and going and going. Like, there's like 3 ends to it. They raid this one place and there's a big shootout and they're like, no, we got to go to Cuba. And they're just traveling all over the place. Too many finales, too many big things. Could have trimmed it down, it would have been better. But like some of the stuff in here is great. The chase scene where the cars are falling back. I mean, I would have put it was one of the best car chase action sequences of the 21st century until Fast 5 came along and took the idea of that and cranked it to the next level. But I mean, just a lot of great stuff in here. Just too long. Coming in at number 5 is Transformers. For me, only the first Transformers, the only one that I find rewatchable and one that I'd really recommend, and see if it's for you and maybe give the other ones a try. Probably not. The nature, kind of the structure they chose of spending time with the family, the template that they ended up using with the sequels fits in the first movie while we're encountering this world and this universe and meeting these characters and learning the rules of it. That makes sense to kind of spend time with Sam buying a car and it turns out to be a Transformer and introducing all this stuff. That makes sense, where in the other ones, it's like, just get to it. Let's get to this. I don't need to know about his roommate. I don't need to know about his job stuff. I don't need to know about Marky Mark's journey trying to be an inventor and his daughter and the boyfriend. Like, I don't need to know all that stuff. Let's just get to it. We're in a Transformers movie. The first one, it fits. It's structured nicely with all the elements, the way they come together. Like I said before, Shia LaBeouf, I think, is a solid actor in this type of movies. And some people, you make the jokes about him just screaming, or no. But it fits in the context where he's a person seeing ridiculous, over the top robotic alien robots coming to this earth, blowing stuff up. Of course he'd be yelling, no, all the time. That's what a human being would do in that scenario. And so there's a lot of things to enjoy here. It's like Michael Bay had one good idea here and then has just been recycling the same ideas over and over again and just putting more crazy into it to try and be as good as the first one. But I think he only had one idea's worth of good storytelling for this type of storytelling that he used in the movie. So it's a very fun, solid film that unfortunately turned into a really bad franchise. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to talk real quick about something called MoviePass. MoviePass is the way I pay for all of the movies I go and see the theaters. Here's how it works. I pay $45 each month, and they send me a credit card. Whenever I want to go see a movie, I open up their app. When I get to the theater, select the movie, they put the money on the credit card, and I can go and see the movie. There's a couple catches in that. You can only see any movie one time per month, and you can only see one movie per day. But if you go to the movies once per week, it pays for itself. Now, I go to the movies 2-3 times a week, so I pay would have like $150 worth of movie tickets, if not for MoviePass. It saves me a ton of money. Now, if you only go see 3 movies a month, not a good deal. But if you're like me and you see 5 or more movies, it pays for itself. I highly encourage you to use it. It works really easy. They got great customer service. If you want to sign up for it, use the link down below. It helps out my channel. If you just go to their website, it doesn't help my channel. So I wish you to help out my channel. Use the link down below. It really is a great service. If you go see 5 or more movies per month, I highly recommend it. With that said, let's get back to our video. Coming in number 4 is Bad Boys, the original one. So when this movie came out, Michael Bay was just a music video director. Martin Lawrence, I believe, was still just doing his show Martin, which I actually watched a little bit back in the 90s. And then Will Smith was rapper guy that was on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And this is kind of the movie that transitioned all 3 of them to being people that we know. This is the start of Will Smith becoming A-list movie star guy. And even this one wasn't when he became movie star guy. That was a year later with Independence Day. But this was the start of the movie career. And the movie feels almost quaint and subtle compared to what Michael Bay did with the rest of his career. But once again, it's a straightforward action movie. And so it lends itself very nicely to what he brings to the table, which is a very good visual eye. And with the right actors in the right context, his stupid jokes work. And that's, once again, Will Smith with Martin Lawrence. Those people go together. And the girl in it is Téa Leoni, who I really enjoy her work. And so her kind of at a fun point in her career, very early on with them. Michael Bay early on just makes for a solid 90s action movie that was a very good start to a career that had some high points and some really weird low points. But it's interesting to look back on it and be like, yeah, he started really strong out of the gate. And that movie kick-started so many different things that it's kind of interesting that you look back at it now and it's such kind of a just somewhat generic 90s action movie that's kind of important in its own ways. Coming in number 3 is 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Now, this is the one that I hadn't seen until last night. I watched it for the first time last night. I was pretty sure I was going to like it. I'd been waiting to kind of watch it with my wife. We're big fans of The Office, and so Jim from The Office suddenly got ripped, and he's in this movie. He's partnering up with his wife's ex-boyfriend in it. And if you haven't watched The Office, you don't know what I'm talking about. But so we were going to watch it together, and it never happened because this is a movie that would stress her out to no end. So we took our time, and so I wanted to do this video, so I had to watch it without you. Sorry, honey, if you're watching this before I'll be able to tell you that. She's out of town right now. That's the other thing that happened. So I watched it. Sorry for the mini rabbit trail about what's going on in my life. My wife is in Seattle for a week. So I'm living the bachelor life with my 2 kids. Single dad for the week. Shooting fun videos. That's why you're getting 2 of these. Rabbit trail ended. Let's get back to the movie. So, once again, obviously telling a true story, and when they announced he was going to be doing this Benghazi movie, a bunch, almost anyone with common sense was like, ooh, that's not a great, we've seen Pearl Harbor. Don't want that again. We saw Pain and Gain, and that, with the story of Pain and Gain, his style kind of fitted, but the subject matter is a weird take on it. So Benghazi, we know that Michael Bay's a big fan of the military and patriotism, all sorts of stuff, so that's good. So it'll be respectful of the troops. And he seems to be very patriotic, but without being terribly partisan. So that'll probably work well for this story. But he's Michael Bay. He's Michael Bay. What's he gonna do? And I thought he did a really good job with it. Now, I don't think the subject matter or the nature of the story lent itself to necessarily like Oscar movie. I don't think it lent itself to some of the, the grander scale 10 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, best of all time. But it didn't need to be. It just needed to be a good telling of a story that was respectful, that made for a good movie. And that's what I thought this was. And in particular because while it has spectacle and explosions throughout, really what it does is it doesn't focus on visceral action or just awesome action movie type stuff, because you couldn't do that and be respectful. It, of course, does what the right thing is, which is it builds tension. From the very beginning, it builds tension. It makes you feel uncomfortable, like something's going to happen. And you just, because if you have any basic knowledge of what's going to happen in real life, what happened in real life, or basic understanding from the trailer what movie you were watching, you feel the tension, and it's there, and you're just waiting for something bad to happen, and people are going to die. And when someone dies in the movie, that means a person died in real life. And unlike with Pain and Gain, where it's kind of disrespectful, here it's handled very respectfully. And so I thought it was a very well-made movie. It's a little bit difficult for me to see Jim from The Office as big tough guy, and that's not his performance. That's because I've seen every episode of The Office, and I've seen the first 4 seasons of The Office 20 times. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. That's probably literally. So I've seen a lot of him as Jim, nerdy, scrawny guy. So he's a little bit different here. But very solid, very good movie, very respectful take of it. And an example of, this is what you should be doing, Michael Bay. Just knock it off with the please stop it. I believe in you, Michael Bay. I absolutely think that you are not just a good director, you have great director in you, and you have chosen to be crappy director, pile of garbage director. You've chosen to do that because we've seen the stuff where you're actually very good at making movies and building tension in even kind of different genres, and there's certain themes reoccur in here, but we've seen you can do good stuff. Get back to good stuff. Knock it off with the Transformers garbage. Coming in at number 2, a movie I reviewed just a few days ago, The Rock. So, for me, there's a trilogy of Nicolas Cage action movies that came out when I was in high school. The Rock, Con Air, Face Off. And for me, The Rock was always kind of my least favorite of that batch, kind of back in the day. And as I've gotten older, it's kind of moved up, and it might be my favorite of the bunch. I'm not really sure, because I have more nostalgia towards Face Off and Con Air. But as a movie, just watching it, being like, that's a really well-made movie. So I think, as for just great filmmaking, Face Off and The Rock kind of battle back and forth for me, with the Con Air being the one with the most nostalgia for me, the one that I've probably rewatched by far the most of the bunch. So anyway, Rabbit Trail of Nicolas Cage. Now I'm reviewing those ones as well, so hopefully I'll remember the cards up there. But the reason I say all that is this is a very solid 90s action movie that does the best with what Michael Bay has to offer. What he does well, the visuals, the treatment of military and patriotism, having powerful moments with them. And as I mentioned in my review, there's some nice world building going on here where just little lines where they talk about implying that aliens exist in the universe of The Rock and secret conspiracies about JFK. All that just makes it feel like an interesting place to tell a story. It's very similar to our world, so it doesn't come off like this big foreign thing, so you don't think about as world building, but it is. Those little details about the spy world where alternate world, Sean Connery, James Bond, British spy guy, steals U.S. files and gets locked up for 30 years and he knows about the aliens or whatever was going on there. That's cool. And of course, seeing Sean Connery in a movie like this, well into his 60s at the time, being the badass British spy one more time. All that, just wonderful, fun movie. I got a couple issues with it, but nothing worth bringing up here. Check out my review for it to find out more about my thoughts about it. Just very cool 90s action movie that's aged very well. And looking back on it, it really has aged quite well. And that brings us to number 1 on our list, and that is Armageddon. Now, some people hate this movie. For me, I love this movie. I saw it in the theaters, loved it back then, and at no point in time in the last 20 years has my love for this movie ever waned. It's stupid. It's ludicrous. This is what a great popcorn movie looks like for me. Or as I call them, Taco Bell movies. I eat at Taco Bell all the time. I love Taco Bell. It's one of our after church traditions as a family. So I love Taco Bell. Is it great food? No. Is it good for me? No. Do I get great enjoyment out of it? Yes. Yes, I do. And I want to eat it a lot. And that's what this is to me. This is a great Taco Bell movie. You can pick it apart. You can make fun of it. You can explain to me with logic all the reasons it's horrible. And I love it. But for that same reason, I'm not going to try and convince you to like it. If you tell me you can't stand it because it's stupid and it's got Michael Bay jokes left and right, I'll go, yeah, that's fine. I don't care at all that you don't like it. I'm not going to defend the quality of it. I'm just going to say I get an enormous amount of joy out of it. The weird emotional stuff where he's handing a patch to a guy and the trickery in the third act. And I don't want to spoil it for you. You have to see because you got to see this movie if you haven't seen it. So not going to spoil it for you, but you get the feels in the third act. And it's sappy, it's cheesy, it's melodramatic, and it works for me. Might not work for you. Won't try to convince you to get it to work for you. It has all the things that I want in my blockbusters. This for me is the most enjoyable Michael Bay film that made me laugh. And just if you look back at the cast on it now of Owen Wilson, Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Steve Buscemi, William Fichtner, Liv Tyler, Billy Bob Thornton, and I'm leaving people out. Michael Clark Duncan. I mean, this is a cast filled with people that are just great actors. Some of them really early in their career, some of them late in their career, some of them at the peak of their careers, all in this movie that was written by one of the screenwriters being J.J. Abrams. I mean, just so many people worked on this one, and I think it's a very enjoyable film that, I don't understand the people that don't like it. I really don't get why they don't like it. I kind of do, but I don't. I enjoy it too much. But I'm just not going to try and convince you to like this particular one. So anyway, that is my list of the 13 Michael Bay movies ranked from worst to best. Put yours down in the comment section down below. Tell me mine's insane. Mine's pretty insane. I know it's very biased towards my personal preference. And for a dumb blockbuster movie, if it gave me what I wanted out of it, that's why it's on top. And so it's just a fun movie for me. It is what it set out to be for me. So that's why I can put it up on top. Tell me your list down below. With all that said, if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, do these ranking videos every single weekend. You can check out the playlist on that. You've probably already gone through your favorite franchise, or if I haven't, tell me in the comment section down below what franchises you want me to rank at some point in time in the future. With all that said, thank you for watching.